Korea is a small country, thousands of miles away, but what is happening there is important to every American. On Sunday, June 25th, communist forces attacked the Republic of Korea. This attack has made it clear beyond all doubt that the international communist movement is willing to use armed invasion to conquer independent nations. An act of aggression such as this creates a very real danger to the security of all free nations. Harry S. Truman. The influence of the Korean War on the world, which almost turned into World War III. In the year 1950, when the fourth FIFA Cup was held in Brazil, on the other side of the world, the Korean War broke out on the Korean Peninsula. It started when North Korea made a surprise invasion of South Korea on June 25, 1950, without a declaration of war. The battle continued fiercely for 3 years. Located in the eastern region of Asia, the Korean territory was only 220,000 kilometers squared, but the war was considered fierce due to the confrontation between the great nations during the Cold War, combined with the leaders' individual ambitions. Although there are many opinions on the cause of the Korean War, the main cause is thought to be a combination of Korea's internal conflict and external factors planned by Kim Il-sung and Stalin. Kim Il-sung, who sought help from Stalin and Mao Zedong out of personal ambition, had more than twice the military power of South Korea and tried to finish the war by conquering most of South Korea's peninsula within a month. However, the war came to a halt when the United Nations, spurred on by the United States, stepped in. The Allied troops were frequently defeated and cornered, but MacArthur's successful landing in Incheon drove North Korean troops to the northernmost tip of the Korean peninsula. Then China, who couldn't stand to see the victories of the Allied troops drawing closer, became involved. The war dragged on until the Korean Armistice Agreement was signed in July 1953. The agreement is still in place, and North Korea and South Korea are still confronting each other using the DMZ line as a border. As a result, Korea is currently the only divided country in the world with the longest armistice in history. About 20 countries participated in the Korean War, and it holds a Guinness World Record for having the most countries supporting an ally in war for one nation. It is also a war that could have spread to become World War III. In the Korean War, direct armed conflict arose during the Cold War period after World War II, provoking the direct intervention of the US and Soviet Union, representatives of the free and communist sides respectively. However, the war revealed a massive difference in power between the United States and the Soviet Union. During World War II, the Soviet Union wasted national power battling with Germany on its own land, while the United States showed immense growth during that same time. Stalin, the head of communism, had no choice but to respond passively to the repeated requests for support from North Korea, trying to avoid intervention from the United States. And to prevent the conflict from becoming World War III, they entered the war disguised as Chinese soldiers. The United States, aware of the Soviet Union's participation, ignored it for the same reason. President Truman thought that tough action taken on the Korean War would stop the war from growing into World War III. So he appointed General MacArthur as a commander and sent a large number of troops. This difference in position altered the face of the war. The Korean War was fought in a small Asian country, but it had enormous worldwide impact, especially because it sparked a confrontation of ideologies around the world. This war strengthened the conservative, anti-communist atmosphere in the United States, reflected in U.S. foreign policy, and laid the foundation for the Pax Americana. Also, it raised awareness of the crisis around the world that led to an increase in military affairs. Furthermore, it promoted competition of the development of military weapons among powerful nations. It was also the first time in history where a war involved a confrontation between two opposing nations possessing nuclear capabilities. This served as motivation for many countries to develop their own nuclear weapons. The Korean War also had a significant impact on the power of communist nations. Rebellion arose against the Soviet Union for its passive behavior during the war, which shook the position of the Soviet Union and eventually led to its collapse. On the other hand, China, which has actively supported its communist allies, rose to prominence to become the center of the communist nations after the Korean War. In conclusion, the Korean War left horrific wounds on both sides. Between the North and the South side, it was estimated that more than 2 million people were killed or went missing during the war. About 300,000 American soldiers fought, with 35,000 deaths, and about 80,000 British soldiers fought, with more than 1,000 deaths. Overall, there were many deaths, considering the duration of the war. Unlike North Korea, which received socialist support after the Korean War, South Korea received liberal democratic support and subsequently greatly surpassed North Korea in terms of growth rate and scale. Currently, South Korea's GDP per capita is over $30,000, and it has grown to be the world's 10th largest economy, measured by GDP. On the other hand, North Korea remains the world's poorest country. This is considered a triumph of liberal democracy, preserved by the blood, sweat, and tears of many youths from the liberal democratic nations in a time of fierce and horrific war. Old soldiers never die. They just fade away. Douglas MacArthur.